Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Melanie. This is Adventures in Hostessville, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Vintage Magazine Project, where we try to figure out history by digging through old magazines. It is the first week in February, which means it is the first week of the 1926 physical culture.
Ba-da-bum, ba-dum-bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Okay, if you're not familiar with this magazine, it's sort of the first health and fitness magazine. And by the time this came out in 1926, it had already been around a while. It was founded in 1899 by this guy, Bernarr Macfadden. The first episode of the month is the cooking episode, so I wanted to see what Physical Culture magazine thought that I should eat. And there are a number of options in here. Proper food is the best spring medicine, right opposite the picture of this naked guy. Can you see him? Summer foods for winter meals. There weren't any recipes in here. So I did what I was probably expected to do, and I purchased Bernarr Macfadden's Physical Culture Cookbook. This is the 1926 edition, and it's got a ton of recipes. It's got pictures. It's also got these meal plans. Tomorrow, I need to make nut-loaf for dinner. It will go with my tomato sandwich salad, jellied dates, and peanut nog. Put through the food chopper sufficient nut meats to measure 1 1/2 cupfuls. Okay, well, I do not have a food chopper, but I have got this meat grinder that I got at a church sale one time, so I'm gonna use that instead. The thing about this meat grinder is that it doesn't fit on this table, nor does it fit on any of my counters or my dining room table or even the coffee table. The only table that this will attach itself to is this nightstand table. But I can't do it way up here, so come with me. We're going down to the floor. All right, so I'm down here. I've got the meat chopper that's gonna chop nuts. And I've got all these nuts. He says to use a combination of, I think, Brazil nuts, pecans, walnuts if you want, hickory nuts, and almonds. I got this at the co-op, and it was already pre-mixed. It has cashews in there. He doesn't say anything about cashews. I'm not gonna pick them all out. It's my added touch. That one, that cashew, I did pick out. Ooh. Oh dear. Nuts are hard. Okay. Oh. So, Bernarr Macfadden is born in Missouri in 1868, and he's got your sort of standard terrible childhood, right? Like his mom has tuberculosis, his dad's an alcoholic, they're both dead by the time he's 11, and he goes to work on a farm at that point. And he was sort of a sickly, weak kid, just like me. But he goes to work on a farm because you could just go get a job as a hired boy when you were 11 back then. And he realizes that after a couple of years of hard outside labor, he is a whole lot stronger. After a couple of years of that, he gets a normal job because now he's 14 and he should be having a full-time job. And he goes and works in an office building. And after a couple of years of that, he is back to being weak and sickly again. I wonder if a different blade would be better. Let's try that. Oh, yes. Oh, there's the answer. Just use the right blade, Weirmacher. Jeez, oh, Pete. Okay, I could do this for hours now. So he leaves the office job. He gets some work on farms again. He works as a wrestler for a while. And ultimately, he goes to St. Louis and sets up shop as a kinestherapist. Now, if you've never heard of that before, that's because he made it up. But he's basically a personal trainer. And then he publishes a magazine which is Physical Culture magazine. And it starts off just as a fitness magazine, but then he starts putting in all these other things and really gives you the Bernarr Macfadden view of life. This is what's wrong with the world. And the things that he thinks are wrong with the world are prudery, gluttony, white flour. He calls white bread the staff of death. He hates alcohol. He hates coffee and tea. He hates corsets and high heels. And he hates medicine and doctors and pills and vaccinations. These are the things he hates. And he believes that you can fix everything basically by exercising, eating right, and fasting for long periods of time. And he gets very famous, and he starts building this total brand. He starts this series of vegetarian restaurants. So he decides he's gonna open a health spa in Battle Creek, Michigan, where Post and Kellogg are already dueling it out. And he gets there and he's like, and here is my healthatorium. And they're both like, out, this town is not big enough for you. So he decides, I don't need that. I'll found my own city. So he goes out to New Jersey and he's gonna found what he calls Physical Culture City, which is gonna be this utopia where people just live the physical culture life. Oh, he gets in trouble with the law because he gets all these obscenity charges towards him. He contacts all of his followers, magazine subscribers, and he's like, write to the president and have him pardon me. Well, fortunately, Taft is about to come into office, and Taft will pardon him. Taft does pardon him before he has to go to jail. And unsurprisingly, very shortly after that, there is an issue of Physical Culture magazine with a picture of President Taft on the front. Our comfiest president, for sure. I want to lay on him, but an ideal specimen of manhood in the Bernarr Macfadden fashion? I don't know. Anyway, Macfadden is pardoned, but the heat's still kind of on. So he goes to England for a while. And when he gets to England, he starts this beauty contest, and it's for the most perfect female specimen or something like that. And this woman, Mary something or other, wins it. She's a champion swimmer. She is not an amateur, but she wins the contest, and I am sorry that I cannot remember her last name, but the reason I cannot is that very soon her last name is going to be Macfadden. Because that's right, they get married. She is his third wife. She is 19, he is 46. He proposes to her halfway through a 10-mile run that they're on. And when she accepts, he treats her to getting to watch him stand on his head for a minute. You won the contest. Your prize is me. So they go back to America. They have 7 kids, and he starts trotting them around. And they're going to auditorium shows, and they're in magazines. And basically, he's using them to try out all of his theories. And that doesn't always go particularly well for the kids. Add to the chopped nuts 1 pint of stale breadcrumbs. All right, well, I've got this bread here that is a couple days old that I made using Bernarr Macfadden's recipe. So I think that being the housewife of Bernarr Macfadden was probably not that fun. First off, he was not good at fidelity, for one thing. And once Mary started having all those 7 kids, she put on some weight, which is going to happen, but then she was no longer the ideal physical specimen. Like, they used to tour as the world's fittest man and woman, I think was the show, and he would talk about health while she would, pose in different poses. And the grand finale was that he would lay on the ground and clench his stomach muscles. She would climb up on a 7-foot ladder and jump off of it onto his abs. I would pay to see that show. So anyway, so they don't have the same relationship they used to have, and it kind of comes to a head when one of their kids gets very sick, and she's like, please, can we just take him to the doctor? And Macfadden is like, no, the cure to everything is to fast, and in this case, to dip my kid in a really hot sitz bath. That's what I'm gonna do. And the kid dies. And he's kind of not ever, he's just like, well, the child was weak, And, It's hard coming from this current point in history to think back. When he founds this magazine, it's prior to the Pure Food and Drug Act, it's prior to the FDA. There is no oversight, and people are selling, baby toothing ointment that's just morphine. But he doesn't ever really change his mind when new information comes along. But he's still sort of in the prime. This is now the late teens, early 20s. And one of the sections of this magazine that is super popular is where people can write in and tell their own stories. And a lot of it is, I fasted for 40 days and now I got a new car and a girlfriend and my family respects me. And he thinks, well, this is so popular. Why don't we just have a whole magazine that's just this? And so he starts a magazine that he calls True Story, which is the first kind of confessional magazine, and it is enormously popular and runs for decades. It's so popular that he says, well, then we should also have True Romance, and we should have True Detective. He also starts Photo Play, which is a celebrity gossip magazine. Eleanor Roosevelt writes for him for a while. She's got a column called Babies, Just Babies. And then he decides, I want to have a newspaper. And so he founds this newspaper called the New York Graphic, and his critics call it the New York Pornographic because it is just trash. He's interested in politics always. At various points, he runs for New York mayor, he runs for governor of Florida. He really thinks he should be president. But he is financing these campaigns with his magazines, just taking the money out of the magazines and the newspapers, and ultimately the stockholders are like, what are you doing? You can't do that. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm Bernarr Macfadden, I do what I want. And they're like, no, you don't, you're out. So he's kind of been fired from his own company now. This is the 40s, and things are headed on a downturn. And what do you do when things are on a downturn? You found a religion. All right, so all I have to do is mix then now the nuts in with these breadcrumbs. It's very brown in here, so many shades of brown. And then I put in enough boiling water to moisten. Okay? Well, I've got this water that was boiling a moment ago, so is this moist? Oh, that might actually be more like damp. So now I just let that sit for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to have to put it into a pan. So he founds this religion called Cosmonarianism, I think, is what it's called. And it's not very creative. It's basically just exercise and the Bible. It doesn't really go over. He doesn't have a lot of followers at this point. But he does still have some followers. And one of the people that is following him is this woman named Johnny Lee something. And again, I cannot remember because, as you probably guessed, she is about to be Johnny Lee Macfadden. She is his fourth wife. She's 40-something when they get married. He's 80. And they're only married for about 4 years because she has to break up with him because he keeps having sex with other people. The last time it happens, he's 84 years old, and she's like, I guess you're not gonna grow out of this. Oh, and he's such a crank. So he just does weird stuff. Like he will, in the middle of a conversation, just moo or bray like a donkey because he says, well, that's how you exercise your throat muscles. He walks around barefoot all the time because he believes that by having your bare feet on the earth, you can connect with these magnetic currents that will give you feats of sexual prowess. And he's tugging on his hair because he says that that's how you stop from going bald, is to just yank your hair. So he's like, you know what I'm gonna do for my 81st birthday? I'm gonna parachute out of an airplane. And he does, and the press does come, and he's like, this is great, I'm a thing again. I'll do it every year. And the press is like, we're not coming. We saw it. We've seen an octogenarian jump out of an airplane now. He's lost all of his fortune, right? He doesn't have a business anymore. He's living in one of those sort of men's hotels, and he gets sick. And he won't go to the doctor. He's 87, I think, at this point. He doesn't go to the doctor. He just starts fasting. He fasts for about 3 days, and the hotel manager finds him and calls an ambulance, and he dies in the hospital. Which is exactly what he didn't ever want, which is a shame. So you will have noticed at this point that there is nothing in here that would be like flavor. There's no spices, there's no oil, There's no salt. And then we bake it for a while, an hour in a moderate oven, which that would be, I would say, 350. Oh yeah, it's definitely, well, it's solid-ish. Am I supposed to invert it and take it out of this pan? I don't know. This is the end of the directions. The recipe stops here. It's not wanting to be a slice. It might want to cool. Well, I'll just taste this and I can take it out of the pan later. Oh. Well, that's certainly a way to ruin a lot of perfectly good nuts. I don't like this. I'm gonna eat it all though, because I paid for all the ingredients. It's gonna be a healthy, healthy chore. I'm gonna be eating a lot of healthy chores in the next 2 weeks as I follow this 2-week health plan. So if you wanna know more about it, if you subscribe to my Patreon at the lowest level, we'll get you all of that information. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would subscribe here on YouTube, that would be really helpful and help other people find these videos. So great. Thanks a bunch, and I'll see you next week.